cover the ceremony in which the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages were released today. Some of them did. Of course, in around the world, it's reported to some extent, but of course we know the media around the world will excuse anything the Palestinians do and blame Israel to the extent that they actually condemn what the Palestinians did. Should we just start with a video, Daniel? I don't know which ones you have, but you have a couple, right? So let's just see what this ceremony was like.
جايين والعز الولد يا
Right. So you see a large audience there braving the rain to go watch this despicable ceremony with music and really a celebration of Palestinianism. This is Palestinianism at its core, at its essence. This is what the Palestinian cause is. You saw it today. You saw it on October 7th. If you refuse to believe, that's on you, and that's going to be on you when it comes to your doorstep. Welcome to the reality show. Thank you, Faye, for becoming a member of the YouTube channel. I am joined by Daniel, Michael, and Anders. Anders, I'm going to go to you first. Your thoughts on some of what we've seen today.
Well, I've expressed this before, but I'm just surprised that anybody is surprised. Of course, it's despicable, all of it, right? But we have to keep in mind that we're dealing with medieval savages here, Hamas and large parts of the Gaza population. And quite frankly, I could make an argument that they show remarkable restraint because, why not put the heads of the bodies on poles and parade them through the streets, because that would be more consistent with their general outlook on life. So yeah, it's totally despicable. But at this stage, I mean, these are people who murdered and killed and pillaged over 1,000 Israelis a little over a year ago. And now, due to these despicable peace agreements or whatever, ceasefire agreements, call them what you want, we're now giving them the opportunity to yeah, it's basically, they're seen as heroes by their own people. And, where a lot of it is on us being those of us who represent and champion Western civilization.
Yeah. By the way, they did parade bodies through the streets on October 7th. As part of this ceasefire hostage deal, they were supposed to release hostages, living and dead, without such ceremony. So this is already a violation of the agreement. But of course, it is Hamas. We don't expect any agreement. We don't expect them to honor their own word. Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I second what Anders said, and I think the world is just, when I see these comments, I just want to slap them. Which is, stop whining about this. This is behavior becoming a terrorist. This is completely consistent. And this fake, we're so shocked there are no words. Well, there are words, and the words are that these people need to be annihilated. End of story, full stop. The other thing that's very clear is this notion that there's a significant proportion or minority, a significant minority of Gazans that are innocent is clearly ridiculous. And not that it really matters, because frankly, they elected this group to lead them, and this group has led them. And the third point I would make is that we there is only one response to this behavior, and it is not releasing hundreds of terrorists out there and thinking that's a fair trade because Israel has this, and I have to say it, and I'm an Israeli citizen and my wife is Israeli, I'm American citizen too, but this absurd and outdated view that Israelis' bodies are absolutely, invaluable to the point where hundreds of people that are going to kill more Israelis are let out. And I think it's just, frankly, I think it's childish and it's a lack of leadership. There are the usual ridiculous comments from Netanyahu et al. That they are going to, get revenge, as if this were some new suggestion that the Bibas family were dead or any of the families are dead. The whole thing is just full of pathetic theater and ridiculousness. And the answer has to be in stop talking and go and bomb the crap out of these people and get them out of Gaza and remove people that want to murder you from living next door and stop with all this world holier than thou crap. And that's what it has to be.
Yeah, by the way, the idea, the reason I think Israel exchanges terrorists, living terrorists for dead bodies is religious. It's not, so it's not meant to be rational, and it certainly isn't rational. Thank you,
Well, it's
PC.
actually counter rational. I mean, it's in some ways suicidal, which
Absolutely.
those of us who are not religious need to make the point. How many dead Israelis did Sinwar cause? Well, we know some of them because the 1,200 are dead, plus the hostages. And he was one of those that was released in the last deal, or one of the last deals. I mean, it is just impossible to deal with people that that want to be suicidal like this. So I'm shocked. I'm not shocked. I am upset that there's no logic to any of this.
Yeah, it's suicidal when you release terrorists for living hostages, but
Yes.
it's next level when it's for dead bodies. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says, Razi, it's no good. Big words, they must take action. Yes, but they needed to take action again in so many different points in history, and the action taken, unfortunately, is always the action that leads to more of this and to it being worse. PC also says, Trump said hell will rain on Gaza if all were not freed. Where is it? Good question. We will, I'm sure Trump is watching. Send us a super chat, Mr. President. Otherwise, we won't read your comment. Daniel.
In Philosophy Who Needs It, Ayn Rand talks about how emotions are not tools of cognition. Basically, just because you feel a certain way about something, on one hand, it doesn't even necessarily means your emotions are aligned with your ideas, and also they don't give you knowledge about what you should do about it. But we are hearing, even from international organizations, how terrible this is. And we are not planning to do anything differently. There is pretty much no rethinking about the way we have been doing something. The Red Cross has been criticizing um, this almost celebratory nature of how they are dealing with hostages. About how, how Hamas is dealing with hostages, about how Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad have been traumatizing the hostages during the release, yet they haven't changed anything. It's all the same, and so yeah, you like on some level, do I even trust the emotions that people feel outraged about this if your ideas are the ones that are repeating this? Either the majority of the world is schizophrenic and somehow manages to completely separate their emotions from their ideas, or I don't trust that any of these international organizations, anyone from the UN actually is sad about this, because their ideas are necessitate this. Their ideas are letting this happen again and again, and nothing is changing. So yeah, just to start with that, I mean, the whole I mean, as Anders said, in some ways we shouldn't be surprised. I mean, this is in many ways there's nothing really new about this. What is new is it's new hostages that we now know that are definitely dead. Uh, but
Yeah, I
fundamentally,
mean, in no way should we be surprised. The only thing that should be surprising maybe is as far as the reaction of some in the West. And I don't even mean the people who take to the streets to support Hamas, because as far as I'm concerned, they, at least on some level, belong with the people they support, although the people they support would probably not share that view. And it's the people in the middle. I'm going to repeat what I said on the Daily Objective. I was watching Israeli Channel 14 earlier. One of the people said, I think we should be less generous with humanitarian aid, but I'm not for starving the population because us Jews were starved, which I went through my whole rant on the Daily Objective about how absolutely upside down that is, considering, the fact that Jews were starved to kill Jews and Palestinians want to eat in order to kill Jews. But this is the Israeli right. This is supposedly the people who are most pro-Israel doing what needs to be done. And no, the dominant philosophy and the culture shows up on the worst and the supposedly best among us, unfortunately, or certainly among those out there who are worthy of being on television. Anders.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show how deeply entrenched altruism is, whether it's the religious variety of turning the other cheek, etc., or if it's the secular variety where the welfare state has become the new god, and it's the whatever minority you consider oppressed has the right on its side.
Thank you, PC, for the super chat. PC says, I must say the pro-Palestine cause was exposed today for its true nature. I must, again, thank you for the super chat, but disagree with the timing of what you say. No, the pro-Palestine cause, there was no excuse yesterday or a week ago or a month ago for saying, actually, it's just people who want to live free, but they're in an open-air prison. No, if you buy into that or chose to repeat that before today, you were still, very, very much in the wrong. Remember, and this is why I also said this on the previous show. I don't think the sentiment today in Israel, which is outrage, and we need to once the ceasefire is over, get rid of Hamas. Of course, they don't say the Palestinians. And yeah, October 7th, remember, it was live streamed. All the most horrific atrocities, the scenes we saw on October 7th were worse, far worse than the scenes we saw today. We saw people being murdered. We saw people being shot. We saw the result of people being burned alive. And thank you, PC, for another super chat. PC says, yes, Razi, you're right, but it's more exposed again. Yes, it's just another, but every single day that passes, Palestinianism is clear enough in its intentions and how it carries out its intentions that this is why I always say, nobody can be pro-Palestinian and a good human being at the same time. You can be those at different times in your life, but not at the same time. Michael.
Yeah, I do just a couple of points. I mean, Bezos has a great comment, which is really a paraphrase of a lot of what Ayn Rand wrote, and it is that reality is undefeated. And you can have all kinds of ridiculous values that you apply to other people, especially those people who don't believe in those values, and pretend that deep beneath their murderous, terroristic behavior, that they're actually good people, which the statement in itself is obviously ridiculous. But effectively, what Anders was referring to, I think, is this notion that we need to be nice to folks, almost regard, and this is kind of the turn the other cheek Christianity bullshit. And I pardon the word, but I think it's appropriate that we're supposed to, accept people for who they are and just let them kill you because that's part of some kind of a value statement. And of course, if you're dead, there's no value left, right? And it's the antithetical to the basis of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which used to be, and for some people still is, the basis of Western values or the bases of Western values. The the other problem, and to jump on again what Anders said, to add to that is that this notion that a war should be fought with one hand behind your back is also, frankly, just stupid. And our inability these days to say to people, you're an idiot, that you don't give your enemy any advantage in a war because they will take it. And that is missing mostly from Western leadership. It used to be here. We've talked about this on the show before. It was here in World War II. It was probably the last time that we had the moral clarity to understand, at least to say it, that Hitler needed to be defeated. And it doesn't matter how many Germans died in the process because Hitler wanted to take over the world. And by the way, the Muslims want the same thing. Instead of the Aryan race, this is the Muslim caliphate. It's the same crap. It's the same, you need to die or be converted. And that's exactly, in Hitler's case, you had to be Aryan or die. I mean, it was a little bit simpler, but this is how it goes. So we had clarity in World War II. And the reason the US won the war with the Allies, but mostly the US, frankly, won the war in World War II with, God forbid, Russia's help, is because we had moral clarity on who the enemies were and what we needed to do to those enemies. And we annihilated them. We leveled places. We didn't worry about civilian casualties. And the last war we won in the US was frankly that war. And that was it. We haven't won a war since then. We fought Korea and many of our kids died. We fought Vietnam, they died. We fought ISIS slowly, especially under Obama, until Trump came in and took away a lot of the ridiculous hamperings and constraints that Obama had put in. And we mostly annihilated ISIS, but like every good tumor, a few cells survived and it's growing back. And of course it needs periodic reminding, just like you need to give people periodic chemotherapy and radiation when their cancer returns. So long-winded answer, but I think the behavior is appalling. The philosophy under the behavior is appalling. And again, to close, as Bezos said, at the end of the day, you can believe whatever you want. Reality is going to win. And the terrorists will continue to do what they're doing until they're annihilated. Full stop.
Yeah, I mean, the World War II example is perfectly appropriate, and I agree with you. It's the last time the West fought properly and won. And I think there was an understanding back then that to win the war fully, it's not enough to defeat the immediate military capabilities of the enemy. You need to crush the will. You need to crush everything in the culture that made them go to that war in the first place. You need to completely eradicate that part of the culture. And yeah, whoever dies in the process, tough. You should have thought about it before. You should have fought against it. You should have escaped. Yeah, this happens in war. The victim is not responsible for deaths on the side of the perpetrator. Mr. Baseball says, what if some released jihadi prisoners were to come out limbless? So, I was watching, as I mentioned, I was watching Channel 14, and people said, brought back the idea of having the death penalty for terrorists in Israel, which I of course support, but the terrorists during the time of war, the terrorists you capture, you don't need that. I know I say this from time to time, and it's controversial among objectivists as well. But no, you capture a terrorist in the battlefield, you get whatever information you can out of them, and you kill them. They don't deserve a trial. This is not within a crime committed within the state that you can you have the right to due process and all that. Yeah, so I'm very much for just killing these terrorists rather than holding them in prison until Hamas grabs some hostages and can bargain for them. Daniel.
So, first of all, I almost forgot all my points while listening to Michael. I don't know, he was just talking so on point that I sort of got into zone of listening.
Thanks.
But you actually read the Razi, you read the comment I wanted to comment on also when it comes to jihadis coming out limbless. Uh, they have no business even being in Israel on October 7th. If you were an American in some nuclear site in the middle of it, they wouldn't ask questions. They would kill you on spot pretty much. And that's if you were even American. Because there are certain places where simply there is no free movement or anything. There is no free movement where jihadis can just go into Israel and just hang out or do whatever. The only Palestinians that were there on October 7th were people who either broke through the fence and decided to go kidnap, kill, and rape Jews, or were other Palestinians who saw that this is happening and wanted to go in on an action. There is, as far as I'm concerned, the only reason why you wouldn't torture jihadis or anything like that is because it would probably be waste of time or waste of resources. Kill them all. There is no justifiable reason for keeping them alive. They already forfeited any sort of right to exist. Now, even when it comes to when we go, let's say now, again, in a case of America, when someone commits murder, that person has given up the right to live. Now, there is a bit more context when it comes to those cases, especially when it comes to presumption of innocence and a fair trial and a fair punishment also. But it's much different when this is war. That's what's happening. Hamas has started war, and you have to act like it. And that's not what Israel has been doing. And I think they are suffering the consequences for it. Israel is viewing this as some sort of um, basically domestic conflict where population is acting out and they have to suppress the population, like it's some kind of general strike or something like that, instead of looking at it as this is war and we have to fight it like it. Just because Palestinians, when it comes to their capability of fighting, is pathetic for the most part, yet still they can do damage to Israel, that doesn't mean that somehow this is something different. Evil by its nature is going to be weak, but you still have to fight it to the largest extent because you cannot risk a life of a single Israeli, of a single citizen. That's the only job of the government. And when it defaults on that, there is no reason for that government to exist.
Thank you, PC, for another super chat. PC says there must never be a state of Palestine, Razi. Never. UN must go away now. I completely agree. Look, if the idea of a Palestinian state wasn't killed on October 7th, then the state of Israel was. I very much hope that nobody with the power to do so will entertain that thought ever again. And random countries recognizing a state that doesn't actually have any, bodies that a state has is annoying enough, but it doesn't create facts on the ground. WUB says, this is absolutely wrong, Razi, presumably on the idea of killing terrorists without a trial in the battlefield. Vered says Razi is right. WUB, I'm going to ask you to elaborate. Vered, I'm not going to ask you to elaborate. But yeah, Anders and Michael haven't spoken on that yet, so maybe they disagree with me. Anders.
On the issue of killing terrorists, you mean?
In the battlefield rather than capturing them, arresting
Yeah, no,
them.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, from a principle point of view, I mean, war is war. You kill the enemy, period. I mean, there could be some tactical advantages to perhaps I mean, we know in past wars, World War II, for example, the fact that the US treated prisoners of war much better than the Germans, the Russians, and the Japanese did sometimes helped us because people felt that they could throw in the towel because they knew that they wouldn't necessarily be immediately killed on the other side. There were actually people who defected to the Allies for that exact reason. So, you know, I don't know if you could draw some similar parallels in this case, or if these terrorists are so committed, so there is really no reason to do that. So just give them the axe right away, and then the problem is out of the. The problem solved. I wanted to mention, though, say something briefly again about moral clarity. Just and I agree that the last time we had moral clarity, the West, some level of it was World War II, but we shouldn't forget that we didn't have full moral clarity because we let the Soviet Union off the hook. We actually enabled the Soviet Union to become as relatively powerful as it was in the decades leading up to World War II. So we could probably relatively easily have avoided a Cold War by letting General Patton march into Eastern Europe towards the end of World War II, you know, but we didn't. So we shouldn't deceive ourselves. Yes, we did the right thing with the Germans and the Japanese, but we unfortunately stopped short of total victory, and that was due to a lack of moral clarity.
Yeah. Yeah, PC, I see the pro-Hamas trolls. There are many of them. Look, they're commenting that helps with the algorithm. Thanks to them, more people will hear what we have to say. So good, unless they spam. Let's let them keep going. Michael.
Yeah, great point, Anders. And that was another one of those hope being a strategy that the Soviet Union would come around, which was obviously absurd, and killed almost as many people as the Second World War did in the Stalin era and following. But going back to this absurd notion of court or justice on the battlefield, it just shows a complete lack of understanding of where a court comes from and where justice comes from. Justice is something that happens inside of a country that has a constitution that actually outlines the codes of justice and sets up a judiciary system that gives people, that is citizens. In normal countries, it only applies to citizens who are part of that country, a set of rights that go along with responsibility, which we don't usually enunciate the responsibilities, but a set of rights. And a citizen of a country has a set of rights that are given not by God, but given by the country. And that's why every country has different rights for its citizens. You know, in America, we all know the right to remain silent. Anything you can or say will be used, blah, blah, blah. Those are example of Miranda rights. But that comes from being in a country and a citizen, not anything to do with war. And this absurd notion that you could extend that to people that want to murder you. When someone points a gun at you and is ready to blow you away, or a rocket-powered grenade or a tank at you, there is no court of justice right there. There is an immediate response to defend yourself and annihilate those people. And it's completely irrelevant to bring this up. I understand that our amazing professors that we have in America now, especially in the humanities, have taught everyone that everybody deserves a trial. No matter how guilty you are, it's absurd. But to extend it beyond citizens of a country is to show a fundamental lack of understanding of what this means, and also embracing this absurd notion of international law and international human rights, which only exist in the minds of flaky Western professors who think that anybody on the other side of the world, which is the non-Western democracy types or the non-democracy types, have any recognition of this. It's really infuriating.
I do want to say, yeah, you know, I'm all for, you know, as I think I've made clear, killing terrorists when you capture them. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to do that every single time. You know, one one thing I would consider using them for, and this, of course, is also controversial around the world, is as human shields. You capture a terrorist, you're about to go into a house, send the terrorist first. One thing I know from people I know who have been in Gaza as part of this war is that every building in Gaza has weapons in it. The people walking down the street are unarmed, but they know that the buildings, they just go in and there's a gun there. And of course, they're unarmed and they're not with uniform. 100% of Gazans were civilians until these ceremonies started, and suddenly they found their uniform. So yeah, what I'm saying is they don't have any sort of right to their life or right to a fair trial. WUB says, captured, they get to live. That's not an argument. Why? Why does a terrorist get to live because he got captured? I don't accept that. But if you want to elaborate some more, I will read it. Thank you, PC, for another super chat. PC says, Razi, it's time Wikipedia stop talking about Palestine as state of Palestine. It's not a country. I don't follow the Wikipedia stuff. But yeah, look, many people around the world should stop talking about this issue as they are talking about it, because it's it's dishonest. And WUB says it's our morality. It's not my morality to treat a terrorist as if it's a decent human being, or as if it's a somebody who just got arrested and is innocent until proven guilty. This is somebody in a battlefield, in a war that they started, in a war that they're not even fighting, under any of those rules that, yeah, as Michael said, we academics made just for Westerners to fight with both hands tied behind their back. So no,
Sorry, Razi, I can't help but jump in. I mean, it's frankly, it's immoral. If you believe that the right to life is a fundamental right, that allowing someone to point a gun at you and giving them any rights at that point is not only immoral, but it's bluntly stupid. And if you think it's smart, go ahead and try it. I welcome you. The good news is you won't be here tomorrow for the discussion.
Yeah, and WUB also says we stand by our values. Again, like that's a slogan. What values? There's an argument in objectivism. Ayn Rand in the Objectivist Ethics identified 7 virtues, and somebody who claims to be continuing her work wanted to add benevolence, and the problem as a moral virtue. And the problem with that is benevolence is good contextually. It's good when it's somebody you don't know and you assume the best. It's good when you're dealing with somebody who you know is good. It's absolutely unjust when you're dealing with bad people. Being benevolent towards bad people is an act of injustice. And here you're talking about the worst savages in the world. No, I again completely disagree. But before I go to Daniel, I do have to promote some upcoming stuff. Again, those of you, hopefully all of you or most of you have seen my interview/debate with Moshe Feiglin on Monday. It went, as I've said, I think I lost the debate, but on points, not by knockout. But there is a rematch. That rematch has been set for March 2nd. That's a Sunday. So there's no reality show afterwards. So we're going to go for at least 90 minutes. And in order to win the second round, I'm training. And one of my training sessions is today, 9 p.m. UK time, 4 p.m. Eastern. Michael Leibowitz, playing Rabbi Leibowitz, will be debating me on the same question, the same topic that we will be debating on March 2nd. Zionism, Jewish identity and religion. This is a members only debate, but every member at every level can watch it. Every YouTube member can watch the live stream. Regular members through the website can will have a Zoom link emailed to them, and that Zoom link is also on the members group. Daniel. Daniel or Anders? Am I
I didn't go yet.
got the order?
I think I'm going, yeah. So first on PC's super chat, when it comes to the so-called state of Palestine, I mean, I love Wikipedia, but one of its biggest problems is neutrality. And neutrality when it comes to being morally neutral. there technically is a thing called State of Palestine. It's a UN observer state that more than, I think, like 150 countries recognize as official nation. That's, I think, evil. Recognizing the so-called Palestinian state, I think, is evil and it's immoral. But with the Wikipedia sort of goal of trying to be neutral, I think that's the result of it, and it's problematic. But I think the only thing that can fix that is a better culture that recognizes that morality is required when evaluating history, when evaluating politics, when evaluating anything. You cannot look at history, you cannot compare countries with no moral or philosophical framework by which you are comparing them. Now, just one quick thing about the idea of should we kill the jihadis or not. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's not a moral question. It's a tactical question. Morally, they forfeited their rights to exist by invading a country. We are no longer talking about rights. There are no rights that play a role in there. Again, rights are not something that exists in nature. Rights are not something that are given by a king or something. Rights are a moral framework that we discovered, and we know that if we want to live as humans, we need to recognize the individual rights of each other if we want to live in a civil society. If a country or if Gaza or whatever set up a system where they do not even know what rights are, there is nothing to recognize there, especially if they decide to invade another nation. Um, and and one more thing about sort of even when it comes to civil society, again, it's never about states or even constitution granting you rights. It's always the fact that a state recognizes the fact that we as humans require rights to live together, and that is the purpose of state. So again, when people try to say about what about the rights of Palestinian terrorists who invade Israel, they have no idea what individual rights are. They have no philosophy that supports that, and you should just dismiss them. They have no basis to talk about that. They have no framework to even discuss that.
Thank you, PC, for another super chat. PC says, Razi, you're a great man. I appreciate that very much. And later on, PC says, you're all great guys. I love this channel. So yeah, the rest of you are not excluded. Anders, I know it's your turn now.
All right. So, yeah, back to the issue of a Palestinian state. Obviously, I've been on record many times here to say that that is not just an option, and I keep maintaining that, and Israelis and Israel doesn't want to hear it, it seems, but the only long-term path to peace here is for Israel to occupy both Gaza, both the West and the West Bank, southern Lebanon, southern Syria, and rule it with an iron fist until the culture is changing. And we're talking a generational project here. Absolutely. I don't deny that, but that's what we're talking about. I don't know the practicality of shipping off the Gazans to some other place in the world. I tend to think that that will create martyrs of them, and that's not good. So keep them where they are, but to rule them with an iron fist, establish property rights so that they can start to go about some real productive activities, and then slowly but surely, you give them certain rights, and eventually, in a distant future, they may become full citizen of a United States of the Levant.
Well, look, the practicality of it can be figured out. But the thing is, in terms of making martyrs of them, they are already martyrs. I mean, people already support them. I just came back from the US. Anders and I had dinner there, among other things. very nice lobster roll. I love the US. I enjoy my time there always. And I come back and I take the train, and the first thing I see is somebody who I will judge by their looks is probably LGBTQIA plus, and wearing a t-shirt that says Free Palestine, and has the map of Israel, all of Israel except the Golan Heights. That they're happy to give to Al Qaeda. So yeah, the pro-Palestinian movement is becoming more and more clear about them being a pro-exterminate Israel and Israelis movement. And that will always be the case. So it's better if they are martyrs in Indonesia, where I don't think they'll find their way back on their own to Gaza, than for them to to be martyrs on Israel's border, for Israel to be in charge of the denazification process, which may take a few decades, will definitely cost Israeli lives. And yeah, I don't want to see that.
Yeah, just one comment on that. I still don't understand what the Indonesians have done to deserve this.
They have some spare islands. That's why. But yeah, that part I agree with. Although I don't think if I knew more about Indonesia, I probably wouldn't be a fan. Michael.
I mean, I can guess what Trump's idea with that was. Indonesia is the biggest Muslim nation. It's even as I think it's in top 10 when it comes to the biggest nations. So if there was a one country that would take the 2 million or whatever, 1 million Palestinians or whatever it is, if you can spread them around, that's possibly the least harm when it comes to sort of dropping them in one nation. But that's about as far as I got when it comes to why it would be Indonesia.
All right, Michael, just before you go, I want to say WUB says, I'm not society, but these are values we have agreed upon for more than 100 years. Yes, altruism, sacrificing ourselves for the savages that want to kill us. And we've gotten better at altruism. But yeah, the fact that something is agreed upon and has been agreed upon a long time ago, that does not make it right. Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It just reminds me of sticking leeches on patients and saying they're going to get better. And yes, there are a couple of conditions where it might have helped, but the vast majority of those conditions got a lot worse. Never mind all the infections people got from the leeches and the fact they were anemic and had no energy. And many of them died because they got anemic on top of it. So this is not an argument, really. Things change, and you have to take the data as they are. Where did we all forget that our foundational values have to exist in every argument, or else the argument falls apart immediately? If life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or some variation of that, those set of three things, some people add property ownership or property values in the middle, but those 3 or 4 issues, if they are not part of every argument, then the argument is doomed to fail. As soon as you start an argument that devalues life or values one person's life over the other, you've lost. And one of the reasons I have so much trouble engaging in a lot of these discussions with folks is because it starts with the assumption that somehow if I'm a good person who's paying my taxes, not committing crimes, and contributing positively to society, that my life is worth less than the so-called oppressed terrorist who's all pissed off because they might have to actually work for a living, rather than pick up a gun that somebody else supplied and shoot somebody else. And that is so mysterious to me, where the basic idea of these things, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, have gone. They don't exist in any of the Islamic militant cultures. And yet we discuss with these cultures as if they were part of this with those basic assumptions. If someone doesn't believe that life and liberty are fundamental values, that you cannot give up your liberty for someone else's liberty, you cannot give up your life for someone else's life, then I have nothing to discuss with them. The argument is over. And that's the fundamental problem with all of altruism, is that it values somebody else's life over mine. And I'm not interested in that. I actually think it's immoral. strongly immoral. And I think that our government's job is to protect my liberty from other people infringing upon it, and just the same that to protect other people from me infringing upon theirs to the extent possible. And last point, of course, we give up some of our liberty. That's the social contract. And the reason to give up some of your liberty is because I cannot protect myself from criminals and North Koreans and Iranians and Russians and Chinese who want to kill me. I can't do it myself. So what I do is I give up my liberty, meaning I pay taxes to the government. And the government's job fundamentally is to protect me in all senses of the world from enemies, both foreign and domestic. So I really think, folks, it would be a lot easier to have these discussions if we start with asking the simple question: do those people value my liberty and their liberty and my life and their life the same way? And if they don't, the game is done.
Bonnie says, I love the block button. Yeah, just people generally, of course, the fact that we keep trolls on the chat for probably longer than they should stay there is really just for the algorithm, or if they say something really funny that we can repeat. But of course, you don't have to be subjected to that. Feel free to block them on your own. Anders.
No, I just what Michael just said. I basically agree with everything. I think it's something that we really need to keep in mind. And Ayn Rand wrote a lot about it. The fact that these countries that we pretend to negotiate with and get into deals with. I mean, we were currently in that situation. Actually, is just a way of totally disregarding those fundamental values that we should be standing for, but that unfortunately a lot of people either are not supporting or they're very unclear about.
There was something earlier in the chat that I wanted to address briefly because it's anyway, yeah, somebody said, well, how did the Bibas family die? Suggesting, was it an Israeli airstrike or was it the Palestinians? It doesn't matter. The Palestinians did this, and it is their responsibility. They are morally the only ones who are responsible for this in any way. And seriously, you, the person posting this, watch our shows every day. I would have hoped you'd have learned something by now, but you clearly haven't. So keep watching, and there's always hope.
The Palestinians kidnapped these kids and killed the father at knife point, or the relatives at knife point and gunpoint, and took them hostages, period. It doesn't matter how they actually died. Wow.
Yeah. Thank you, PC, for another super chat. PC says, I have 23,000 blocked on Facebook since October 7th. Wow. How do you take the time even to do that? But yeah, I understand the sentiment because yeah, I've also after October 7th have excluded people you know, over this, and I think that's the right thing to do. PC says Yarden will be broken now. So sad. Yeah, I mean, what he's going through, we can't even imagine. But again, that is the success of Palestinianism. This is what they want, and they have achieved that when it comes to him. Daniel.
Just to make one more point about the primitivity of modern day morality. I mean, as Michael mentioned, when it comes to morality, we are still at the leeches state. We are still at the state of like, oh, maybe we should wash our hands before we put our hands in the guts of like people we are operating on. We still haven't really passed that kind of like medicine when it comes to ethics, because look at what we're doing. Oh, yeah, we're gonna, so someone invades us, someone kills our people, and now we're gonna feed them throughout the war. That is literally putting leeches on people and hoping that somehow that's gonna like heal them. That's the exact thing we are doing right now in morality. And as long as we don't adapt a morality, a philosophy for the modern man, uh, for what it needs to be, if we ever hope to get out of this situation, if we ever hope to also go into the future, because it's important to remember, the same way capitalism is a system of the future, also objectivism is the philosophy of the future. It's not some sort of old thing. And if we ever hope to progress as a society, we need to adopt a better morality that makes that capable. Um, Now, I just want to quickly comment because Michael mentioned a bit earlier that we give up our liberty when we sort of become part of society, and just a philosophical point. Although I think I understand what he meant, basically the fact that we are paying taxes. Now, in ideal state, I think there would be no mandatory taxes because again, the liberty, rights, and freedom should be something that state doesn't infringe on and simply recognizes. Now, for that, it needs funding, and hopefully, when we get there, we would be able to do it voluntarily. And it's important to remember a state that only does those few things. When it comes to government spending, that is on the things that is actually going to be, it's about 2% of what it is right now. So I think we can do that without giving up our liberty and forcing people to pay taxes. I think people will be glad to pay like 0.5% of their income to ensure we have a civil society.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the percentage, especially when it comes to Israel. But the thing is, there's a lot of things that when government has, unlimited power essentially to tax and over your life, you can see that in Israel in how the war is fought. If you can't force people into the army and can't force people to pay for things, you would think twice. Are we? Hopefully, you would think twice. Are we going to go on a ground operation? Because we can sacrifice some soldiers. Another batch is about to turn military age, and send in unlimited uh, humanitarian aid, extend a war that really could have been won quickly. And remember, like this has an effect on the economy, a very, very serious effect on the economy, because the war costs money directly and it costs money indirectly because people who are, would otherwise be at their jobs are being taken for military service. So yeah, the moral is the practical, and practically this is not working.
Yeah, and just quickly to build on that point, because people try to make that argument when it comes to Ukraine that we are making money on Ukraine because we are sending their weapons. Last time I checked, wars only destroy, and that is not a productive way to spend money. A money that is spent on bullets is a money that is not spent on factories, is a money that is not spent on developing new medicine. That sort of Keynesian view that as long as we spend money, we're somehow prosperous is bonkerous. If we lived in a much more peaceful world, the money would be much more better allocated to actually things that produce and not the things that destroy.
Jonathan Honig, thank you for the super chat. Parting thoughts, and where can people find more from you, Anders?
You can find me on Substack, andersingemarson.substack.com, and you can find my book, Think Right or Wrong, Not Left or Right, on an Amazon outlet near you.
Michael, parting thoughts, and where can people find more from you?
Yeah, one of the suggestions I have for everybody, and it's taken me many, many decades to figure this out, but intellectuals love to make everything a lot more complicated than it is. And I reject, look, I'm a physician. I make new drugs for cancer, mostly for cancer treatment, and it's really complicated stuff. But frankly, there are some basic points that if you just keep your eye focused on those points, you make a lot more progress and you don't get stuck in this kind of intellectual maze and convolution. And that is, start with basic principles. And when you're arguing with someone, just ask some simple basic things. What you're going to find out is that mostly they don't agree with you, or if they do agree with you, at some point they stop. It's the yeah, but Hamas are really just freedom fighters kind of crap that has seeped into our oh so intellectual erudite thinking that is just baloney. It's like saying, well, that cancer cell doesn't really want to kill you. It doesn't really have a mind. It just can't help itself. It's just growing. Well, there's one way to answer that. You annihilate the cancer cell. And if you don't think these people are like cancers, look at history. These militants are cancers. And they don't need a lot of subtlety. They certainly don't need intellectual arguments, and you don't need a professor of sociology and anthropology from Harvard to tell you how to think about people that want to kill you. And you certainly don't want to give them a trial by jury or a trial at all. Michael Kaufman, 2Fs on LinkedIn.
Thank you, Jason Adams, for the super chat. Somebody else I met in my US trip, where I had, again, not seen one single Free Palestine t-shirt until I landed and saw one at Paddington Station here in London. Daniel, parting thoughts, and where can people find you?
There is not that many final thoughts. I mean, we really just have to realize that this whole war has been fought wrong, and it was because of the morality and philosophy that is in the culture right now. And if you want to change that, read some Ayn Rand. You can start with the Fountainhead. I think it's a good start. And you'll see also true evil in one of the characters there that I think stands behind many of the figures like Hamas. And you can find me on my YouTube channel, Damned Dan. Links to my stuff as well as everybody else's stuff is going to be in the description. You're muted.
Yeah. Just when I'm promoting my stuff, I'm not unmuted. I'm Razi Ginsburg on X. I will be debating Michael Leibowitz, playing Rabbi Leibowitz, in 2 hours' time. For members, YouTube members, you can click the join button and watch it live and comment. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody, for watching. And we'll see you back here tomorrow with the Daily Objective and the reality show, which will be about Ukraine. And we will have somebody from Ukraine on that show tomorrow.